welcome back, everyone. I'm delighted to be here today. I'm Jing Ulrich with JPMorgan, and it's my pleasure here to close out the day with our very special guest, Dr. Li Kai-Fu. So as we've been discussing here all last few days, we're entering into a world that's dominated by AI and FinTech. So by the year 2025, over 75 billion devices in the world will be connected to the internet. This is a remarkable number. That's basically 10 devices for every person. Now, AI spending is also surging. By 2021, the annual spending will be $58 billion US. In addition, current FinTech adoption is estimated to be 33% of the global digital population, will continue every year for the foreseeable future. So financial institutions around the world, including the firm I work for, JPMorgan, are investing heavily into AI and FinTech. Each of these numbers I just cited is very exciting and very impressive, and there's no denying that both AI and FinTech are concurrently on the rise. Yet imagine the impact when these two can be combined. So it's with great excitement that all of us here are welcoming Dr. Li Kai-Fu, CEO of Sinnovation Ventures in Beijing, to demystify the wonders of AI and FinTech. Kai-Fu is a world-renowned venture capitalist, an expert on AI and FinTech. He is the author of a best-selling book entitled AI Superpowers, China, Silicon Valley, and the New World Order. Sinnovation Ventures has about $2 billion under management and is a leading tech-savvy investment firm focusing on the next generation of Chinese high-tech companies. Prior to founding Sinnovation Ventures, Kai-Fu worked for Google China. He was the president for Google China. He worked for Microsoft and Apple as well. So in his bestseller, AI Superpowers, Kai-Fu describes China is rapidly moving forward to become the global leader in AI and may well surpass the US in the future years. So thank you very much for joining us here today, Kai-Fu. I will first ask you a few questions about AI and FinTech, and then we'll take some questions from the audience.
Okay.
So first of all, Kai-Fu, you've been involved in AI for some 37 years, and it's hard to believe you still look so youthful. And
I started when I was 2.
I guess so, you must have. So please tell us how this revolutionary technology has the potential to transform the traditional world and financial services. So can you please elaborate on specific changes and how soon we can expect them? Will I still have a job in 5 years as a banker?
No, you and I are both pretty safe. But the AI is, in fact, causing huge disruptions to many, many marketplaces. So let me start by quickly explaining what we mean by AI. AI has many branches. The most promising one is machine learning. Machine learning has a lot of technologies, but the single one that's the big breakthrough is called deep learning. And the way deep learning works is all you have to remember is the following one sentence. When you have one single domain and a huge amount of data, you can train the system to be superhuman in performance. That's all you have to know. So when you see a new opportunity, just ask the question, is it a single domain? Do you have a huge amount of data? And if the answer is yes, then get ready. You can make a lot of money, disrupt a lot of businesses, or possibly have your job disrupted as well. So in terms of where would we apply this single domain capability, in the press, we've read about AI playing Go, diagnosing cancer, winning debates, and also beating humans in speech recognition and machine translation and face recognition. So where does this start and where does it stop? So in my book, AI Superpowers, I talked about the 4 waves of AI, and I'll just briefly mention them, then we can go into more detail. First one is Internet AI, because that's where you've got the most single domain, huge data. So the Alibaba, Tencent, Google, Facebook are the typical beneficiaries that take advantage of all the data we generate every day and tag and label for them. So Amazon knows what you buy, Google knows what you clicked on. Second is business AI. That is banks, insurance companies, brokers, and the hospitals, government officials. With all the data they have, they can turn it into making money or saving money opportunities. The third one is perception AI. That's where the AI can see and hear so that it can do face recognition, smart speakers, conversational agents, Siri, Alexa, but also autonomous stores that can recognize your face as well as your gestures and your intention so that all the jobs in the typical convenience store, retail shop, supermarket, and fast food is all gone. And then the fourth stage is autonomous AI. This is the hardest. That's where AI has to move or manipulate. But when we overcome that, jobs in a lot of blue-collar jobs in agriculture, manufacturing will be gone. Jobs in commerce, jobs in as I mentioned, in fast food chefs, waiters and waitresses, those will all be displaced. And also autonomous vehicle, that is going to be the biggest one. All the drivers, plus all the time we spend driving will be gone. It will become an incredibly efficient in terms of being able to take us from place A to place B with the minimum costs. So these four waves, internet wave is already at the highest point, creating huge value. We all use it every day. Business is beginning in the last maybe 1 or 2 years, and FinTech is one of them. We'll see this continue to move on over the next 5 to 8 years, but it's already here. The third wave, computer vision and speech, we're seeing the very early beginnings, but it's going to be huge. And then the last wave, autonomous AI, is going to be a little bit longer, especially autonomous driving, might be 5 to 10 years away. But all of this will come in the next 10 years or so.
It sounds very exciting. And you've been participating in all these exciting developments through your venture capital fund. So in your fund, I understand there are some 15 unicorns, right? It's quite a lot. And 5 of these unicorns are specifically focused on AI. And I think just in terms of the sheer number of AI unicorns in China, it's probably #1 in the world, surpassing that of the US, right? So can you tell us, of the companies that you have invested in, what is the most exciting AI-driven financial application that we all should know about?
Okay. Yes, we're very proud to have been early stage investors in companies that have later become unicorns. Lots of VCs say we got 10 unicorns, 20 unicorns, but they got in at a unicorn stage, so that doesn't count. I'm only telling you the ones we got in at Series A, maybe at a $20 million valuation, maybe $100 million, but now it's 1 or 3 or 5, in the largest case, $15 billion. So very, very excited about our AI successes. We have, I'll tell you about 2 companies. One is a unicorn, one is not. The one that is a company called Fourth Paradigm. They build solutions for banks, insurance companies, and financial institutions. And they have a platform called the Profit Platform. So you basically load up, you can actually have your IT department become AI enabled by importing your customer transaction records, and then it has modules that will help you to do things like asset allocation, credit card fraud detection, targeting ads at customers that have the highest conversion rate, or loan default likelihood estimates. So pretty much, imagine you're a bank. All the questions you might think or do, insurance company. So pretty much it's replacing one function at a time in the back office of a bank or insurance company. And it has ambitions to be a broader company than that. We think China doesn't have much enterprise company because of habits of not paying for software or enterprise software by enterprises. But we think an AI company might just be the right first entry into the enterprise, then broaden and do much more than AI. So we think Fourth Paradigm is a unicorn today, but if it can also become the future of Oracle or Salesforce or SAP, I think, and China has a completely vacant market. We're very excited about that. Another company I'll bring up briefly is called Smart Finance. It's interesting because it goes the opposite way. Rather than helping a existing financial institution, it's trying to disrupt one. So what it does is it makes loans to people based on not a long application, but information from your phone. So with your permission, it will suck up information from your phone the same way Facebook and Google do, and it will use that information as large number of 3,000 dimensional features to determine if they should make a loan to you. So things like, what apps do you use? Are you using gaming apps? Are you using some serious apps like Zhihu, another one of our unicorns? And it would look at things like, what's the model of your phone? Is it the latest iPhone or is it some really cheap phone? How old is this phone? And it would use things like, what day of the week is it? What day of the month is it? Did you just get paid? It knows that because you told it what employer you work for, it can infer the payday and they know the day of the week. It would also use things that seem a little crazy, like what's the battery level on your phone? That actually makes a little bit of difference because if you have OCD and always try to plug in your phone and recharge, possibly you're likely to repay your loan. If you always let your battery drain out and don't even feel responsible enough to carry a recharger with you, well, maybe you're a little bit less likely to pay back the loan. So every little factor plays a role, and altogether, the default rate is down to less than a low single digit. And that is not something humans can ever do, because not only is it infeasible for us to think about 3,000 questions to ask an applicant, but there's no way we can synthesize and make a decision. And even if we could, we wouldn't take the days it would take to do the manual calculations. So this is why the back office jobs are either going to be gone proactively by the financial institutions or are going to be disrupted by some startup like this.
Well, that's very interesting. Those investments sound very exciting. And also, as you said, Kai-Fu, I think our phones know a lot more about us than our spouse, right, these days.
I think so.
At a more macro level, in your bestseller, you argue that China is becoming an AI superpower because it is storing and learning how to use big data. And of course, in this area, the US is still leading, right? So considering the current geopolitical environment, how can the two nations work together? Are they going to work together? We earlier on in our panel talked about the two parallel universes. You also talked a lot about that. So will there be two internets and two ecosystems and two parallel universes dominated by US and China? Is this for the good or for the bad of the world?
Okay, several questions here. US is indisputably stronger than China in research technology prowess, probably by a factor of 10. So that is the research strength that we have to recognize. China is better because it's got faster, speedier, tenacious entrepreneurs using much more data than US has, because more data means better AI, and China has more people, and each person has more usage. So that multiplied together gives China a very clear advantage in implementation and monetization. So that's the difference between the two countries. And I think in an ideal world, we as a VC would love to invest in a company that has US technology and Chinese entrepreneur and market and data. But in practice, the dispute may make that a little difficult. But in that case, we're still fine. We're just focused on the universe in which we're more familiar and just do the China part. China's AI ecosystem is, in fact, a parallel universe, as is China's mobile system. And we'll just continue to invest in, Chinese VCs invest in Chinese companies who build for Chinese customers. So actually, it's not a zero-sum game. The gain of some Chinese AI company never comes at the expense of an American AI company. But if US chooses to have a trade war, I guess we're forced to focus on Chinese companies only, which we will do, but not because we want to, but because that's kind of the environment.
I agree with that, Kai-Fu. You know, if you think about AI, it is really a controversial topic. You know, Stephen Hawking once said AI could be the worst event in civilization. And Elon Musk warned that it could create an immortal dictator. And Bill Gates said that AI can be our friend and bringing immense new productivity. So which side do you fall on? I presume you're much more positive. But is there anything that's AI related that keeps you up at night?
Right. I'm much closer to Bill in this case, but not 100%. Okay. I think you have to think about people's backgrounds when they speak. I have huge respect for Elon Musk as well as for the late Dr. Hawkins, but they, with all due respect, are not experts or even knowledgeable in AI. They are experts in, entrepreneur, startup, or physics, right? They're speaking outside their domain of expertise. The kind of extrapolation they make about AI becoming dominating is just not feasible. One might look at a newspaper and see an AI breakthrough every week and say, wow, this is going to come so fast, it's going to be a tsunami. But actually, on the one hand, AI implementation is coming at a tsunami because each of the newspaper stories you read is an implementation story. They're based on only one technology, that is machine learning, more specifically deep learning. So when technology doesn't keep progressing exponentially, then all we're seeing is lots of great companies we could invest in and make money, but not the disastrous dystopian outcome that AI becomes so smart as to dominate people. So with respect to this view, I am adamantly against that. I don't see it coming anytime soon, certainly not in the next 20 years, and certainly not before we see a few more pieces of evidence and breakthroughs. So that I'm pretty sure. However, when you listen carefully to Elon Musk, there are some warnings he gives that are very, very real and reasonable. That is AI security. One could hack autonomous vehicles more easily than one could hack PCs or phones, and that could be turned into a dangerous weapon of destruction. AI is optimized on one goal. It's a one mathematical goal, right? The loan maker optimizes on lowest default rate. The Amazon app optimizes on maximum revenue. AlphaGo optimizes on winning the most games, so it optimizes one thing. And we saw that as Facebook tries to optimize for the most minutes in newsfeed, it causes some undesirable side effects, such as choosing to show people with maybe a little bit prejudicial inclinations, with more content that are heavily prejudiced, causing people unintentionally to become more prejudiced. So that kind of side effect, outside objective function kind of on human beings, sometimes Elon Musk talks about that. I do agree, those are the kinds of issues. But I think the biggest issue is actually job displacement. That is one of the reasons I wrote the book, is because if you think about AI as the single domain, large data, superhuman expert, that's not going to replace probably any of the jobs of the people in this room, because all of you are very good at multi-domain processing, right? That's what investment banking or early stage investing is all about. However, there are many people out there who are doing routine single domain jobs. And if you think about the human population, probably easily half the people are doing work that could be replaced technically and economically by AI within the next 15 years. So that probably is the biggest issue that we need to face. There is a financial issue of how to pay for them. There's a retraining issue. There's what new jobs might be available. Those are the things I talk about in my book about how to deal with that.
That's a very comprehensive answer, Kai-Fu, and you said it very well. You know, AI will displace some jobs, the repetitive jobs will disappear in the next few years. It is also going to disrupt a lot of industries, but AI does have its limits. So what are the things that AI is good at? What are the things that AI is not good at? So in terms of humans, right, we I watched one of your TED Talks and it was excellent. You said, maybe AI will help restore the humanity in all of us. Will it?
I think the outcome of AI, the ending of the story to AI, is ours to write. Because it is so powerful, yet it's just a tool. If we choose to use it well, it will end well. If we choose to use it poorly or let it fall into the hands of bad people without controls, or if we give up and capitulate and say AI is going to take over, then it will end badly. So part of my writing the book is to tell us that we own the responsibility to write the ending to the story because it can end well. So let's come back to the first part of your question. What are the jobs that AI cannot do? Very simply, creative, strategic jobs on the one side. So creative jobs would be scientists, writers, script writers, poets, artists. Strategic would be CEOs, M&A experts, many of you in the room, who can cross domains, because this does the two things that I described AI can do. They're outside the domain, right? Thinking cross-domain strategically, that AI cannot do. Creating something out of scratch, AI needs to be given an objective function to optimize. It cannot come up with its own objective functions. So creating a new drug is not something that AI can do. So these types of creative strategic jobs can be enhanced by AI, but it's always human that's making the tough decisions, and humans are the final person, the entity that makes the call. There is another large number of jobs that will become available to people who might lose their routine jobs, and these jobs are the ones with compassion. When I say compassion, I actually mean compassion, empathy, warmth, where the human-to-human connection is essential, and that the human-to-human trust enhances the experience. So you can think of this as a psychiatrist, social worker, doctor, teacher, masseuse, bartender. You can think about this as a nanny, elderly caretaker, nurses. So there are actually a large number of things within this domain. And I would argue that over the last 2 centuries, we saw the largest job migration from agriculture to manufacturing. And in the next 2 decades, we will see the largest job migration from the routine to the empathetic.
Well, from routine to empathetic, that's really, I need to mull over that for a little bit, Kai-Fu. But what if AI decides one day it doesn't need humans anymore? Will it happen? And if it does, what happens to humans?
Well, I can try to cover both answers. I'm a firm believer that this is so far out that because over the last 62 years of AI history, there's only been one breakthrough, which was deep learning 10 years ago. And since then, there has been no other breakthroughs. To get to the stage where AI writes its own destiny and learns to want to have a desire of controlling things and maybe even controlling people, that's going to require probably 20 breakthroughs. So we only have one breakthrough. If I start to seeing 2 a year, 3 a year, 5 a year, I'll start to get worried, but at the current pace, I think we're nowhere near that possibility. Now, having said that, I have talked to a number of very smart people who don't agree with me. I think they are in the minority, but there are a few of them, and they're really, really smart. People at DeepMind, people at OpenAI, all very smart. When I talk to them, I think their belief is that that day will come. It's hard to project when it will come. But here's what we need to do as researchers. That's speaking for them, because I don't believe in what they say. We as researchers should find out a way to train AI to be consistent with human objectives. And it's kind of a human-AI shared future. So AI needs to be trained with every decision they make with the well-being of human in mind, whether that is kindness, protection, or and betterment of human beings. Those are the kind of directions they're talking about. I personally think it's extremely unlikely and very abstract, but I thought I would share what these really smart people think too.
Well, that sounds like utopia. AI and humans coexisting. We're capitalizing on AI, but not being controlled by it. That sounds wonderful. I hope that's the case in the future years.
Well, the other hope is that we never get there, which is, I think, the more likely case, is that people keep trying, but AI continues to be our tool. And in that case, it's a much more controllable future. And that's the future that I believe we'll end up with.
Yeah, now also, Kai-Fu, I'm taking a lot of questions on the iPad here too. As a banker, I'm interested in knowing when you choose to invest in a company, you don't know whether it's going to become a unicorn or not. What are your criteria for investing in a potential unicorn? And also on the exit side, when do you decide to exit a unicorn?
Okay. On AI or in general?
In general, I think you have a lot of successful AI investments as your area of expertise, but you can talk broadly about technology.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, first, I would say there is multiple formulas of success because there are many good early-stage investors in China and US, and each one has a different style. So I'll just answer this not as the definitive answer, but with what we do. We consider ourselves a tech VC. So first and foremost, we understand technology, and we predict technology trends. When we see a technology trend or tsunami coming, we make a lot of investments. When we see a good direction, generally the trend is coming. It's not a zero-sum game. It's a new thing, and we can predict it, and we know something others don't. We quietly invest in as many good entrepreneurs as we can. And that's what we did in AI. The 5 unicorns were not made in the last 2 years during the AI hype. They were invested well before most people knew what AI was. So that's kind of our tech VC secret. The other thing, of course, is we look at the entrepreneur. We think the Chinese entrepreneur, we look for someone to be, well, in addition to all the things you would want, right? Smart, knowledgeable, integrity, and things like that. But we, in particular in China, we look for someone to be an incredible leader. Because in China, the startups are usually a large percentage of the shares are owned by the one single founder. So he or she needs to shoulder all the responsibility, risks, downside, and upside. So that person has to be someone that people will and want to follow. And that's incredibly important. Secondly, we look for that person to be very thorough, because no employee would follow a startup entrepreneur who doesn't know the details of how the market, the company, and the competition works, and especially in early stages. Later stages may be different, but early stages, they gotta roll up their sleeves, work with their people, and then understand thoroughly this industry, this company, this competition. And when we talk to them, we look to learn something from them, not to teach them something. So and then very strong also in execution orientation. These two, I think the strong leadership and then the hands-on execution style are the most important things. And of course, because we're a tech VC, we'll make sure they're technically competent. They're not just sugar-coated AI company, but the real one. And then their actual product idea we care about, but we also understand early-stage companies pivot, and they may end up with a different idea than the one they came to us with. So we like that idea to be sound, but we don't insist it's perfect. We understand it may be changed.
Excellent, excellent answer. Kai-Fu, and lots of questions from the audience here. Very quickly, how will China's social credit score change financial services in the country?
I don't actually know too much about the social score. No one in mainland China actually knows too much about the social score. The only answer I got from a government official was that think of it as a government-run Equifax. And I think a lot of Western press have, based on their own sources, extrapolated that to mean a lot of things. But based on what we could see, it's kind of an early thing that are not public, are not displayed like a lot of people think, and it's largely oriented, as far as I know, on financial transactions.
Great. More questions from the audience. Most successful tech companies are invested in by BAT in China. What are the next big ideas that can compete with Alibaba or Tencent?
Well, I think Alibaba and Tencent have been amazingly successful, not only in their products, but in their investment. And we have huge admiration and and fear for them. However, not too much fear for us because we're early stage and they're late stage. I think it may be difficult. We would have much more concern if we were a late stage investor because it's hard to compete with them. Early stage, we have our advantages. But in terms of an entrepreneur, I don't think their advantages can be carried to every domain. Clearly, if you want to work on the internet, mobile, you got to think about, in Chinese, it's called 抱大腿, you know. Grab their thighs and get their money and let them take you where they want to take you so we can share the upside. But if you're not in the mobile internet business, I think there are lots of areas where they are either not interested in, not competent in, not knowledgeable in, or think it's too small. For example, in many of the companies we fund in AI, when we started face recognition, they thought this was just some silly stuff. But now that it's big, it's actually been difficult. Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent all have decent face recognition algorithms, but they can't seem to come in and beat the 3 incumbents that were startups, one of which we funded. So that's kind of an example. Face recognition is not in the domain that it's used, is not directly related to mobile. And you can extrapolate and say, well, of all the traditional industries, how many do they really have their tentacles in and control? How many really do they really control or can influence things like real estate or manufacturing, or transportation, or retail, or banking. It's unclear that they have that much prowess. So a lot of our new investments, whether it's AI or not, or education actually, that's another one of our big success areas with the VIP Kid as our biggest example. In all of these areas, I would argue that they have modest amount of leverage so that we can still build giant companies in these traditional fields as they're disrupted by AI or other technologies and not be worried that will be squashed by Alibaba or Tencent.
Great, great. We'll keep on taking more questions. Send them through. I'm combining some of the questions to save time. So in terms of how AI and blockchain can shape the new economy, tell us how they can shape the world going forward. But also for all of us here, how can each and every one of us better prepare for an AI world?
Okay. I think, well, first, I don't think blockchain is at the same preparedness maturity as AI. It may be where AI was 5 years ago. It might end up being something equally great as AI, or it might end up with something much smaller. That's determined by how many killer apps are found for blockchain. AI has gone well beyond that stage. AI has created so many multi-$10 billion companies with the single killer app, the internet, right? Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Toutiao, Kuaishou, Pinduoduo, all of them have AI behind. Without that, they wouldn't be what they are. So blockchain needs to find that in order to claim an equal seat at the table with AI. So I know many of you love blockchain here, but I think we just have to be honest and evaluate technologies at the proper technology stage. Now, to answer the second part of the question, how do we prepare for the future AI world? I think first is think about the job you do. How can you do something great with AI as a tool? I think in finance, in investing, AI as a tool is going to be the best thing you could get because AI is quantitative, requires data. You have data. Financial areas are full of data, generally validated, generally well labeled, and you have goals. Your goals are numerical in nature and objective and can be trained for AI to do. Almost every decision made in your companies are quantitative, data-driven. So therefore, they're very, very suitable for AI to do. So be thinking about AI tools that exist. If you're a large firm, build your own team, build your own tools. If you're a traditional company that doesn't have technology, think about buying software from like our Fourth Paradigm or some such company that can assist, understand who has technologies that can help you. Also, AI bar of entry is coming down. So in many areas of big data AI, you can probably hire really smart programmers and have them learn AI on their own. It's not for autonomous driving, but for numerical transactions. So you got to embrace that. The second thing is you got to be aware about the disruptors. I don't know if you've seen a State Farm commercial. If you haven't, look it up. It's very funny because they were mocking a startup insurance AI company called Lemonade. But they did it in such a poor way, and they're such a giant, and they're mocking such a tiny startup, it ended up giving huge visibility to the AI startup. And that shows the fear in the traditional company. And I think you should not be overcome by fear, because AI can be your friend. If you think about AI as this tool that will only be used by the startup disruptor that wants to eat your business, you want to squash them, well, that's not going to happen, because it's AI that's going to take over everything. So you're better off losing some short-term profit, switching to an AI model, eat your own lunch before your lunch gets eaten. Sorry to be so direct and blunt. And then one final point is about AI disruption on jobs. It will hit a lot of the financial industries. It has just only begun. We've seen Citi give warning for its back office. Obviously not for the M&A, deal making, investment banking, VCs, these are all fine. But for secondary securities trading, for back office types of decisions, any decision that's single domain, again, single domain, large quantitative, objective driven decision, well, it's going to have a job potential impact. So if you're in that job, or if you have employees in that job, be thinking about how you would automate that, but also be humanistic and think about how you would help your employees transition into another job, either in your company or gain a skill set that we earlier talked about as not AI displaceable.
That sounds very good. Very good advice, Kai-Fu. Lots of questions on AI regulation. I think AI regulation is still in its nascency, right? So should countries have agreed on some sort of regulatory framework? Also, should countries sign some treaties to prevent AI from being used in weaponry and warfare?
Yes, I think AI will need to face regulation. But I think the first step is not to regulate general AI, because we don't understand it enough. I think the first step is to regulate within each industry. For example, the securities agency can decide how AI trading should work. Transportation agency can determine how autonomous vehicles should work. The Department of Labor can decide how displacement should happen, etc. So I think we have existing laws. To make up a new law around the new technology is really strange. It's like there was never an internet law. Right? It's really how internet is used within commerce, how internet is used within some other aspect. So I would say first, within the jurisdiction of each department, think about how it would regulate use of AI within existing framework, rather than try to break out and come up with some new rule. Because if you do a very high-level new rule, you're bound to be wrong. Europe did the GDPR. I think it is terrible. Basically, it changes the product manager job to one co-owned by the government and the individual consumer. You can imagine how poor a job a government or an individual consumer can do. Every website you go to, you have to click yes, 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 yes. But however, I do think EU is doing a global service, because by doing such a bad job, they wake us up into thinking, well, what are the things we can do? Because privacy is not letting each user decide every website and advertiser. That is the dumbest thing you can imagine to regulate, right? Privacy is a complex issue. It is a trade-off between privacy and convenience. There needs to be a knob we have, right? I mean, I look at my phone and 56% of my time is in WeChat. So WeChat has all my data, but I'm more than willing to give WeChat my data, including some data I probably shouldn't give it, but because it gives me so much convenience, I give up. Right? So that's a decision I'm willingly making, and people should be willing to make those, able to have that little knob. And then there's the privacy for security, right? All of us are happy to let airports have all the cameras everywhere because we know that lowers the likelihood of hijacking. That's worth it for almost all of us, right? And then there's privacy for social good. I have been a cancer patient. I would love to donate my data to anyone who wants to use it for AI medical research. But US has these HIPAA rules that doesn't allow researchers from getting my data. So not only are regulations not helping the knob to happen, but also blocking it. So I think we need more humanly understandable knobs of privacy versus convenience, privacy versus security, privacy versus social good, so we can each dial our own knob. And the process of figuring that out will take some time. It's, and I think GDPR is doing a good thing by trying out a bad product, so other countries hopefully will build a good product.
Great, thank you, Kai-Fu. Since we're at FinTech Week in Hong Kong, do you care to say a few words about Hong Kong, which is a leading global financial center, of course, but in some ways it is lagging behind mainland China in terms of FinTech. So how can Hong Kong leverage the strength and developments in AI and FinTech in mainland China? Maybe also say a few words about the Greater Bay Area, where we are now, 9 cities in Guangdong, plus Hong Kong, Macau, a very vibrant tech cluster, so to speak. One GDP will be 1.4 trillion US dollars, much larger than the San Francisco Bay Area. Population about 70 million versus 7 million in the San Francisco Bay Area. So Hong Kong, in the broader context of Greater China and also the Greater Bay Area.
Okay, sure. I'm a huge fan of Hong Kong. I think the financial services are among the best in the world. Some of the best minds in finance, like Jing, are located here. And many of the Asia heads and Greater China heads and their organizations and smart people, they're drawn. It draws great talent in finance. And furthermore, I think the Hong Kong Stock Exchange has done great things under Li Xiaojia. I think he's been really great in pushing through the stock exchange regulations that makes it more suitable as a tech market. I think Hong Kong is destined to become one of the NASDAQs of the world. I mean it not in the size, but in the attraction for a tech company, right? I think Hong Kong's attraction for tech companies will surely go up given the changes that have gone on in Hong Kong Stock Exchange. At the same time, I would caution that investment is not one profession. Just like Jing's profession and mine are very, very different. I don't think we can easily exchange jobs and do a good job. The early stage investment is a very, very different thing from a PE or investment bank. And I think that clustering and expertise still needs to be attracted. Similarly, I think Hong Kong engineers and graduates are fantastic. See, Hong Kong schools are great. I won't name them all, you know which they are, 4 or 5 really top schools. Their graduates are very much sought after throughout the world. But you got the engineers, where are your entrepreneurs? China, where's your Wang Xing? Where's your Cheng Wei, right? I think that may be difficult to produce given the population and relatively financial comfortable environment and a vibrant middle class that exists in Hong Kong. So I would say some method to import a few great entrepreneurs from China to live in Hong Kong. So bring the good top VCs and entrepreneurs to Hong Kong to bootstrap and grow. If you look at how China did it, it actually imported a bunch of them. If you look at Robin Li, Charles Zhang, if you look at the early investors, Neil Shen or Hugo Xiong, they were overseas brought back to become the seeds. Hong Kong needs those seeds in the early stages. The Greater Bay Area I'm also a big fan of because it addresses a lot of the points I bring up with Shenzhen's capabilities in manufacturing and entrepreneurship and VCs. That's really great. Guangzhou is also very, very forward-looking. I was just at Alman. Even Alman is now progressing greatly. Alman University, I was very impressed today. So I think that's good. However, when we compare with the Bay Area, we need to be a little cautious because when you actually go to the Bay Area, when we go to San Francisco and say, oh, Silicon Valley is great, we love it. And the person from San Francisco will say, we're not in Silicon Valley. This is not the Bay Area. So even in a distance of 40 minutes, it creates an inconvenience that makes it hard to melt together. So as Bay Area faces all those aspirations, I think that the distance is still significant, and also having to go through custom and things like that adds to that. So how to further integrate such a large region so that it's truly a region, looking at how even the California Silicon Valley isn't quite a region. It's like 2 regions, maybe 3 with East Bay. In the US. So how to further integrate with transportation, video conferencing, ease of customs and things like that will be even more helpful.
That's great. Yeah, Kai-Fu, we're quickly running out of time. In the last several weeks, I've been following you on WeChat, on YouTube. You've been traveling the world, educating the world about AI. I must say, you have really perfected the art of public speaking. And the amazing thing is, you're from coast to coast. One day you're in New York, the next day you're in Seattle, San Francisco, then you're back in Chicago, you're back at Carnegie Mellon. It's just remarkable what you do. I firmly believe what you have done personally, traveling the world, marketing your book, and really marketing your expertise and knowledge, and really enlightening the world on AI. The effort is remarkable and is unparalleled. So we are very grateful for your presence here. So I want to perhaps end with what Bill Gates said. You said earlier that you actually agree with Bill Gates when he said AI can be our friend, and let's hope that's the case. And I also want to say, Kai-Fu, you've been so hardworking. You said the Chinese entrepreneurs are unique in that they're hardworking, they're tenacious, they never give up, and you are the best embodiment of entrepreneurship. So I'm very much an admirer and fan of your work, and I'm really proud to call you my friend.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, Kai-Fu, for joining us, and thank you very, very much for attending.